How many times have you wished you could be in two places at once? With Wix, you practically can. Wix's website builder is packed with powerful AI tools to make running your business online easier. Build a full site just by talking with AI. Get an AI agent to manage your sales and marketing. Or work like a 10-person team, even if it's just you. So you don't need superpowers to get everything done. You just need Wix. Try it out for yourself at Wix.com.
From the wilderness of Kodiak Island, Alaska, this is Murder and Mystery in the Last Frontier with your host, Robin Barefield. In a land full of peril and vicious animals, humans are the most dangerous predators of all.
Alaska has spawned a long list of serial killers, from the gold rush era in the early 1900s to the present day. Is Brian Stephen Smith the latest member of this notorious fraternity? I did an episode on this case several months ago, but a great deal has happened with it since then. Smith's first two murder cases have moved through the court system, and the police have released information suggesting he has more victims. Welcome to Murder and Mystery in the Last Frontier. I'm your host, Robin Barefield, and I'm broadcasting to you from the heart of the Kodiak National Wildlife Refuge on Kodiak Island in Alaska. On August 14th, 2018, Alicia Youngblood called Anchorage Crime Stoppers to report that a man she worked with at Dowell Engineering named Stephen Smith had shown her a video and images of a woman he claimed he had sexually assaulted and shot. She continued to contact the police, but felt they were not taking her seriously, so she took them to the Eklutna power plant, where Smith told her he had dumped a body. The police did not have enough evidence to arrest Smith for a crime, but Alicia's information put Smith on their radar. In October 2019, the Anchorage Police Department announced they had arrested Brian Stephen Smith and charged him with homicide. They told the public that an unnamed person had found an SD memory card on the ground in the Fairview neighborhood in Anchorage. The card was titled Homicide at Midtown Marriott. According to the police, when the woman popped the card into her computer and saw what was on it, she quickly contacted them. The public did not learn the truth about the SD card until the case against Brian Stephen Smith for 2 murders went to trial in February 2024. Instead of some casual pedestrian happening upon a memory card on the sidewalk, the truth was that Smith had picked up Valerie Kassler, a sex worker. When he stopped to get money from an ATM, Valerie rifled through the center console of his truck, taking his phone and other items. She was shocked when she later looked at the photos and videos on the phone. She downloaded them onto a memory card and titled it Homicide at Midtown Marriott. After consulting her therapist, Valerie turned the card over to the police. She initially lied to the police about how she'd found the card, but later told the police the truth. She said she'd lost Smith's phone. The memory card contained 12 videos and 39 images of a man beating and strangling a woman to death. The man had a distinctive English-sounding accent when he spoke, and the detectives recognized the accent and the man. He was already under investigation. He was the man Alicia Youngblood had warned them about, the man she said had shown her photos of a woman he had sexually assaulted and shot. The images on the memory card showed the man beating a naked woman on the floor of a hotel room. In one of the videos, the woman fought back against her attacker, attempting to scratch his wrist as he tried to strangle her. In another video, the attacker complained that his hand was getting tired before stomping on the victim's neck with his right foot. He began cursing and telling the woman she needed to die. In a third video, the woman moaned and struggled to breathe as the man strangled her and laughed. One image taken on September 4, 2019, shows the woman's body covered by a white sheet on a rolling luggage cart next to a black pickup truck. Several photos depict the body lying face down in the bed of the truck. On October 2, 2019, a citizen called the Alaska State Troopers to report the presence of human remains outside of Anchorage on the Seward Highway near Rainbow Valley Road, 18 miles from the hotel where the killer had filmed his macabre videos of a murder. Police identified the attacker in the videos as Brian Stephen Smith, 48. Smith grew up in South Africa, and he and his wife owned a 1999 black Ford Ranger pickup truck. Smith had lived in Alaska since 2013 and recently became a naturalized U.S. citizen. He and his wife of 5 years, Alaskan musician Stephanie Bisland, lived on a quiet cul-de-sac in the Geneva Woods subdivision in Midtown Anchorage. At one time, Smith had worked for Dow Engineering in Anchorage as a materials tester and inspector, and he later worked in maintenance for Marriott Hotels. However, he said he was self-employed at the time of his arrest. At his arraignment, he said he only had $2,000 in savings and would need a public defender. Smith had no previous criminal history in Alaska. The police arrested Brian Stephen Smith on Tuesday, October 8, 2019, at the Anchorage International Airport. Smith was returning to Anchorage from a vacation. The authorities charged him with first-degree murder. A few days after Smith's arrest, the police identified the woman beaten to death while her attacker videotaped the brutal assault. She was 30-year-old Kathleen J. Henry, originally from the village of Eek. Henry's remains were the ones discovered on Rainbow Valley Road. An Anchorage grand jury added 7 additional charges to the indictment against Smith in addition to the first-degree murder, including sexual assault and evidence tampering. The indictment also contained a special finding because the killing involved torture. Although the prosecutors would not initially say if they suspected Smith of having other victims, they filed court documents indicating a wide-ranging investigation, possibly extending beyond Alaska. Special Agent Steve Forrest said the FBI was actively involved in the case, and he said the FBI was providing investigative and technical assistance. On October 16th, the Anchorage Police Department announced they had charged Brian Stephen Smith with an additional murder. They said this second murder was unrelated to the brutal killing of Kathleen Henry. Both victims were Native Alaskan women. According to homicide detectives, Smith confessed to shooting a woman between 2017 and 2018. And he gave the detectives the location where he'd dumped the body. Authorities identified the second victim as 52-year-old Veronica R. Abuchuk. Veronica's family last saw her in July 2018. She was homeless at the time of her disappearance. Abuchuk was reported missing in February 2019, but no one had seen her in several months by then. Her remains were found along the Old Glen Highway in April. She had a bullet hole in her skull. Deputy District Attorney Brittany Dunlop said, "These were 2 Alaska Native women, and I know that hits home here in Alaska, and we are cognizant of that. We treat them with dignity and respect. As for Mr. Smith's motives, I can't speak to that." During the press conference announcing the new charges against Smith, a reporter asked whether investigators believe Smith may have harmed others. Anchorage Police Chief Justin Dahl said, We will look at every single aspect of the case and, if necessary, follow it wherever we need to. According to homicide detectives, Smith had confessed to murdering both Henry and Abuchuk and disposing of their bodies. Still, on October 21st, Smith pleaded not guilty to the murder and related charges in the killing of Veronica Abuchuk. He had already pleaded not guilty to murdering Kathleen Henry. At the October 21st hearing, 20 family members of Veronica Abuchuk packed the courtroom. They said Veronica was a much-loved mother, sister, and aunt. 2 women attended the hearing wearing red handprints across their faces. The red handprint is a symbol intended to draw attention to missing and murdered Indigenous women in Alaska and elsewhere in the United States. For too long, violent crimes against Indigenous women have been given a lower priority by some police departments. Activists intend to hold the justice system accountable and ensure that crimes against Indigenous women are appropriately investigated and prosecuted. Stephanie Bisland, Brian Smith's wife, was shocked when she learned that the Anchorage police had arrested her husband. Bisland was on vacation visiting family in Virginia when the Anchorage police contacted her to let her know they had arrested Smith for the murder of Kathleen Henry. Bisland said she could not believe what the police were telling her. She knew her husband of 5 years as a kind man who doted on her. Bisland said Smith was an avid outdoorsman who liked to travel around the state of Alaska alone. Bisland told reporters she feels caught in a battle between her heart and her mind, and she has begun questioning her husband's habits. What did he do on those solo trips around the state? She said if what the authorities say about her husband is true, she wonders, how could I miss something like that? We all have tempers at times, but I never saw one that would do what these people are describing. According to Bisland, the police broke down the front door of the Anchorage home she shared with Smith and searched the garage, an office, bedrooms, the basement, and a crawl space. They seized firearms, rope, memory cards, computers, hard drives, and other items. The authorities also cut a red-stained piece of carpet from the living room. Bisland said she thought it was a wine stain, but she knew the police believed it could be blood. Bisland said the police asked her if she was involved in her husband's killings and questioned whether she might have been pimping for him. She firmly denied the question. The trial for Brian Stephen Smith began in Anchorage on February 6, 2024. The defense attorney asked the judge to suppress the videos and photos on the digital card from the jurors, arguing that the police could not definitively establish the card's chain of custody. In a big win for the prosecution, Superior Court Judge Kevin Saxby ruled that the videos and photos on the card could be used as evidence. In her opening statement, prosecutor Brittany Dunlop apologized to the jurors, telling them that they would see things during the trial that they could not unsee. She said Smith targeted homeless Alaska Native women and hoped to receive notoriety for his crimes, perhaps even posting them on YouTube. Smith's attorney, Timothy Ayer, said everything was not as it seemed. He said the state presents this as an open and shut case, including a confession and videos, but he said the evidence was far from clear-cut. He said there were a lot of issues and holes related to the evidence. He claimed the investigators had coerced Smith's confession to the 2 murders when he was exhausted after a long day of travel. He said the police employed pressure tactics and subjected Smith to hours of interrogation. On the first full day of testimony in the trial, a man testified he was picking chaga mushrooms near the Old Glen Highway in 2019 when he stumbled upon a human skull. A forensic pathologist determined that a bullet had pierced the skull on the left side. The medical examiner later identified the skull as belonging to Veronica Abuchuk. Abuchuk's daughter talked about her mother. She said Veronica was beloved by her family, but she struggled with an alcohol addiction. She had no home, but often stayed with her daughter or relatives or lived on the street. By February 2019, no one in Veronica's family had seen her in months, so her daughter reported her missing. Prosecutors said it was likely mid-August when Smith lured Abuchuk to his home while his wife was out of town. He offered her a warm meal and a place to sleep, but instead, he shot her in the head while she was lying on his couch. When it was time for the trial to show the brutal video of Smith murdering Kathleen Henry, the judge decided to set up the screen so it was visible to the jury, the prosecutors, and the defense, but hidden from those in the gallery. He said Kathleen Henry had already been robbed of her life, but he refused to be complicit in depriving her of her dignity as well. Family, friends, and spectators in the gallery could hear the video's audio portion, but could not see the images. The jurors watched more than 20 minutes of sickening footage. Those in the gallery listened while a man with a distinctive South African accent narrated the violence he was inflicting on Kathleen Henry. He mentioned several times that the killing was being filmed for an audience. At one point he said, "Hit the like button." And while he was strangling Henry, he said, "I'm trying to make a movie. In my movies, everyone dies." A while later he said, "What must my followers think of you?" Smith also said in the video, "People need to cooperate. People need to know when they're being serial killed." At one point during the murder of Kathleen Henry, Smith giggled, and at another moment he began singing an AC/DC song. As Henry lay unconscious, he asked her if she realized he'd still need to dispose of her body. The jury also watched a series of photos of Smith removing Henry's body wrapped in a sheet from the hotel room on a luggage cart and placing her in the bed of his Tacoma pickup truck. In addition to the videos of Smith torturing and murdering Kathleen Henry, the prosecutors presented a brief video showing Smith naked and leaning over Veronica Abuchuk as she lay unconscious on a red couch. Over the objections by the defense, the prosecution next showed the video of Smith's interrogation in the hours after his arrest. Anchorage Police Department detectives Jeff Bell and Brendan Lee questioned Smith for nearly 9 hours. Smith told the detectives he woke up after a night of heavy drinking to find a body covered by a tarp in his truck. But he said he had no idea how the body got there. He said he didn't remember strangling Kathleen Henry to death. The detective played the video of Smith torturing and murdering Henry. "That's my truck. That's my voice. That looks like my shoes," he said, but he repeatedly denied having any memory of murdering Henry. He said he woke up the following day, found the body in his truck, and knew he had to dump it. He admitted to disposing of Smith's body along the Seward Highway. "This is bad," Smith told the detectives as he watched the video. "This is not a nice thing to do or find out that you've done. This is not nice. I don't like this." Let me take a short break. In my latest novel, The Ultimate Hunt, Sergeant Patterson with the Alaska State Troopers suspects a new hunting lodge on remote Shuyak Island at the northern end of the Kodiak Archipelago might be connected to a string of recent kidnappings. He and 3 of his troopers fly to Shuyak and approach the lodge under the pretense of checking hunting licenses. The following is an excerpt from The Ultimate Hunt. When they reached the island's north end, Patterson glided to a smooth landing and pulled into a sheltered cove near the hunting lodge. The troopers jumped out and helped secure the plane to a tree on the beach. Patterson was surprised that no one from the lodge came down to the shore to meet them when they pulled up to the beach. In a low voice, he said, "Have your weapons ready." He led his troopers up the worn trail toward the lodge. He noted 4 surveillance cameras high in the spruce trees pointed down at the trail. Traynor said in a low voice, "They know we're coming." Above the door, a sign read, "Artemis Shuyak Wilderness Lodge." Beneath the wording, someone had carved a symbol depicting a half circle pierced by an arrow. Patterson knocked on the door with his left hand, his right hand resting on the grip of his Glock. He'd unsnapped the holster, but he'd left the gun in it. Whether or not he removed the weapon would depend on the reception he and his men received. No one came to the door for a minute or longer. Patterson had raised his fist to knock again when the door finally swung open. A beefy, middle-aged man with gray streaks running through his short brown hair greeted Patterson with a smile. "Officer," the man said, "I thought I heard a plane circling a while ago, but didn't hear you land." The Ultimate Hunt is available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere good books are sold. Smith admitted to picking up homeless women, sometimes directly from the shelter. He would offer them alcohol and either take them to his home or a hotel. He said sometimes he paid the women for sex, and other times they were so drunk he got what he wanted for free. He also admitted to posting videos on a pornographic website. Still, when the detectives asked him if he somehow planned to distribute the video of him murdering Smith as a snuff film, he denied it. As the detectives were wrapping up their interview with Smith, he surprised them by saying, "Are you guys in a rush?" Detectives Bell and Lee settled back and let Smith talk. Smith told them, "I am going to make you guys famous." He told them he'd picked up a woman from a grocery store parking lot in August 2018 when his wife was out of town. He offered her a meal and a warm place to sleep. But when the woman refused to take a shower, he grew angry with her and shot her in the head while she lay on the couch. The detectives knew Smith had just described the murder of Veronica Abuchuk. After he shot Veronica, Smith said he took disturbing sexual photos with her body. Then he covered her with a tarp and put her in the bed of his truck. Next, he drove her to a gravel turnout just past the Eklutna power plant on the Old Glen Highway and dumped her. When the detectives searched Smith's house after his arrest, they'd found a small blood stain on the carpet near the couch where Smith said he'd murdered Veronica. DNA from the stain matched Veronica's DNA. An FBI cell phone analyst presented the location data from Smith's Google account. The data placed him at Walmart between 9 and 10 p.m. on September 3rd. Then he was at the Midtown Marriott Hotel during the hours when Henry was tortured and murdered. 2 days after the murder, on September 6, 2019, the data placed Smith's phone at the spot where Henry's remains were eventually discovered on October 2, 2019, by 2 railroad workers clearing debris from the tracks near the Seward Highway. She had been dead less than a month, but skeletal remains curled into the fetal position were all that remained of her. The cell phone analyst also told the court that data from Smith's phone placed him in South Anchorage between 4:56 and 5:56 p.m. on September 4th. Detective Brendan Lee took the stand and explained the importance of Smith's trip to South Anchorage. He said Smith went there to meet Ian Calhoun, a person he had texted at 12:54 a.m. in the middle of murdering Henry. The text read, "Hey, you up? I'm having fun." Calhoun refused to comment, and through his attorney, he invoked his constitutional right against self-incrimination. Detective Lee read a series of texts between Smith and Calhoun. Calhoun said he did not see Smith's first text until 7 hours later because he had been asleep. Then the pair shared a series of texts. "I did have fun," Smith's text read, "and I wanted to share." Calhoun texted back, "We need to get together for a drink soon." Then Smith texted, "I have something to show you, something I can't keep too long." The two planned to meet at Forsyth Park on the Anchorage hillside later that afternoon. At 4:46 p.m., Smith texted Calhoun, "Hey, I'm at a small park close to your home. You finished work yet?" All this time, Smith was driving around Anchorage with Kathleen Henry's body in the bed of his truck. According to cell phone records, Smith spent 10 minutes at the park. On October 2nd, the day railroad workers discovered Kathleen Henry's skeletal remains, Calhoun sent Smith a Facebook message with a link to the news article about the body being found. Smith responded, "Oops," but added, he was surprised it took so long. Calhoun responded, "I was kind of hoping it would hurry and snow." Smith said, "There is something else I must tell you." He suggested they meet when he returned from his vacation. However, when Smith returned on October 8th, the police met him at the airport, and he never had a chance to meet again with Calhoun. Calhoun's attorney told prosecutors Calhoun would testify if they could promise him prosecutorial immunity, but the prosecutors denied the request. The prosecution rested its case, and the defense called no witnesses. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours to find Brian Smith guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, sexual abuse, misconduct with a corpse, and tampering with evidence in Henry's and Abuchuk's deaths. The jury also found that Smith subjected Henry to substantial physical torture. On July 12, 2024, Anchorage Superior Court Judge Kevin Saxby sentenced Smith to 226 years in prison, ensuring that Smith will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Saxby said, "It's clear to me, if he's released, he will probably kill again." The courtroom was packed with spectators for the sentencing. Many of Veronica's and Kathleen's friends and relatives had red handprints painted on their faces. Some of the spectators were jury members from Smith and Abuchuk's trial. Matt Duncan, who was on the jury, said he felt justice was served by the length of the sentence. Duncan said, "We went and watched and witnessed the most horrible thing we will ever see in our entire lives. And then we would go back to the jury room for sometimes hours on end and just watch each other cry. It was absolutely terrible. And I personally am going to therapy about it right now." At the end of the sentencing, Judge Saxby said he had no kind, comforting words to offer the victims' families. He said, "I can't think of any words of encouragement. I'm sorry." Were Veronica Abuchuk and Kathleen Henry Smith's only victims? He did not admit to killing anyone else, but it is possible there were more. In courtroom filings ahead of the sentencing hearing, prosecutors released additional graphic photos found on Smith's phone. The photos showed the bloody body of a woman on the ground. She is either unconscious or dead. When the police questioned Smith about the photo, he said she was a woman he'd picked up not long after killing Kathleen Henry. He said she was passed out when he took the photo, and he denied murdering her. When Antonio Comac, an advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous people, heard the photos had been released, she said she was horrified and felt they were dehumanizing and too graphic to be available to the public. When she looked at them, she immediately recognized the bloodied woman on the ground as Cassandra Buskovsky, who had been missing since the summer of 2019. Like the woman in the photos, Boskovsky had a distinctive butterfly tattoo on her neck in faded black and blue ink. 38-year-old Cassandra Boskovsky grew up in the village of Uzinki on Kodiak Island, but at the time of her disappearance, she was living in Anchorage. According to her Aunt Terry, the family last talked to Cassandra on August 3, 2019. When they did not hear from her again, they reported her missing 23 days later. When Cassandra's cousin, Marcella Boskovsky Grounds, looked at the photos from Smith's phone, she instantly recognized Cassandra and felt certain she was dead when Smith photographed her. She believes Brian Stephen Smith murdered Cassandra and then disposed of her body just as he'd dumped Henry's and Abichuk's remains. The police say they do not know if the woman in the photo is dead, and they cannot move forward on the case without forensic evidence. It seems likely that Smith murdered Cassandra Boskovsky. Were there others? In May 2019, the remains of 27-year-old Shirley Skeek were discovered near the Seward Highway. Her family had reported her missing in early January. Shirley's older sister, Anna, said Shirley was last seen getting into a black truck in December 2018. Anna said Shirley had schizophrenia and was off her medicine at the time of her disappearance. Although Shirley's remains were badly deteriorated and the troopers recovered only scattered body parts, the medical examiner determined that someone had murdered Shirley. The troopers have not named a suspect in their ongoing investigation, but some wonder if Brian Stephen Smith is at the top of their list. Smith drove a black Ford Ranger, and Shirley was last seen climbing into a black truck. Also, like Kathleen Henry and Veronica Abichuk, the killer dumped Shirley Skeek's remains along a south-central Alaska highway. Also like Henry and Abichuk, Shirley Skeek was a native Alaskan woman. Shirley grew up in Cake, Alaska, and had only lived in Anchorage for 3 years. How many women did Brian Stephen Smith kill? He was a practiced torturer and killer by the time he murdered Veronica Abichuk and Kathleen Henry. Is Smith the latest in a long line of serial killers from Alaska? Should he be added to the Notorious Club, including Blueberry Tommy, Ed Krause, Harvey Carignan, Richard Bundy, Robert Hansen, Gary Zeger, John Joseph Bottenberry, John Patrick Addis, Charles Sinclair, Joshua Wade, Israel Keyes, and James Dale Ritchie? Thank you for listening, and a special thank you to my patrons in the Last Frontier Club for supporting this podcast. If you would like to join the Last Frontier Club and unlock more episodes of Murder and Mystery in the Last Frontier, search for the Last Frontier Club on Patreon or follow the link in the show notes. For more information about me and my books, check out the show notes on my website at murderandmystery.show. I'll be back soon with another edition of Murder and Mystery in the Last Frontier.
Your business is one of a kind, so your website should be too. With Wix, it's easy, almost too easy, to create a website that's perfectly yours. Just tell AI what kind of site you want to build or choose from thousands of templates. Change whatever you want whenever you want and get everything you need to start running your business your way. No matter what you sell or what you aspire to be, you can do it all yourself on Wix.